Hello, and thank you for joining me today. My name is Russell Gard, Managing Director of Forward Prosperity, Finance and Mortgage Brokerage. Today, I'm so happy to walk you through this presentation titled How to Finance a Data Center. In this extraordinary age of cloud technology, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, data centers provide the crucial physical infrastructure of our modern digital economy. In this presentation, I will provide you a detailed overview of how you can finance the construction and operation of a data center, considering both the practical and financial steps that you would need to take. To start off, let's begin with the fundamentals. What exactly is a data center? A data center is a highly specialized facility that houses computer servers, storage systems, networking equipment, and sophisticated cooling infrastructure. Data centers process, store, and transmit vast amounts of digital data 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Why are data centers so important? There are three key reasons. Firstly, data centers are the literal physical backbone of the internet, cloud computing, and artificial intelligence. Secondly, data centers are essential for national security, healthcare services, financial services, and almost all government functions. Thirdly, data centers drive real economic growth by creating jobs, generating tax revenue, and fueling digital innovation. In short, data centers are the physical hardware that powers our modern digital technology and our modern digital world. Let's now talk about the enormous opportunity in front of us all. Global expenditure on data center construction is currently exploding and nearing $1 trillion according to McKinsey and Company. In Australia, our total data center capacity sits at approximately 2.18 gigawatts, which is only a tiny fraction of the United States of America's 55 gigawatts capacity. Hyperscalers are also pouring in serious money, such as Amazon Web Services, who have committed $13.2 billion by 2027, Microsoft, who are investing $25 billion by 2029, and local players like NextDC, who are spending $2.7 billion on data center capital expenditure. The surging demand for cloud technology, AI, and machine learning means this is a once-in-a-generation investment, and it creates a huge financing opportunity for data center developers and owners across Australia. So, how do data centers actually make money? There are four main revenue streams that attracts both lenders and investors to data center projects. The first type of revenue stream is made by providing retail or wholesale co-location services. Retail or wholesale co-location involves tenants renting out the data center's hardware, such as CPU and GPU server racks, server cages for extra protection, or entire suites to further control security access. Data center tenants are charged per computer server rack, per kilowatts of power delivered, plus any cross connections or additional managed services provided to the tenants. Generally speaking, retail co-location does give higher profit margins. However, wholesale can involve much larger corporate tenants with much longer contract terms. Second, hyperscale or build-to-suit leases. These are long-term agreements ranging from 10 to 30 years or more with large cloud giants like Microsoft, Google, or Amazon Web Services. Under these leases, revenue is tied directly to the IT load, which is actually the power capacity that the data center tenant consumes. The third type of data center revenue stream are known as power and ancillary charges. These charges are comprised of a markup on the electricity delivered, plus cooling metered power usage, as well as fees for connectivity or bandwidth. And finally, value-added services. These services are comprised of managed IT support, disaster recovery options, cloud hosting, or remote hands assistance, all of which can command premium pricing. Together, these streams create predictable, utility-like cash flows once the data center facility is fully operational, and this is exactly what lenders, banks, and investors want to see because it provides secure, stable, recurring revenue. Now, let's talk about the actual financing tools available. When it comes to debt capital, there are four main types of debt finance methods used in the data center sector. Number one, project finance. These are limited recourse loans tied directly to the project's own cash flows. Project finance is ideal for constructing a data center because it requires strong offtake contracts through long-term tenant commitments to give lenders more confidence and security. Number two, structured finance or asset-backed securities. Structured finance is a more technical form of finance which involves packaging up lease payments and rent from tenants, which can then be sold off as financial securities. Structured finance is very popular once the data center asset is stable and assigned investment grade status. Number three, real estate finance or commercial mortgage-backed securities. These are more traditional property loans or securities where the loan is secured against the data center itself, treating the data center like any other income-producing real estate property. And finally, number four, corporate debt or balance sheet finance. These are more appropriate for large hyperscalers and operators who can simply issue corporate bonds or use their own balance sheet cash reserves to fund their own data center projects. Of course, when it comes to finance, debt is only part of the entire story. Equity and hybrid financing structures are equally as important. Equity is usually the first money in and bears the highest level of risk, but also the highest potential returns. Types of equity or private capital include sponsor equity, private equity, and joint ventures. The reason equity is required is because lenders rarely finance the initial cost of a project, and the reason for this is that the lender wants to see you have some skin in the game or risk in the investment as well. Equity is used almost exclusively during the earliest stages of a data center development for things like purchasing the plot of land or securing high voltage power allocations. These often require hefty non-refundable deposits, and that's where equity comes in use. Equity will also be used for securing permits, paying for environmental impact studies, submitting zoning applications, and finalizing architectural design blueprints. And finally, we have hybrid debt and equity structures. These are becoming increasingly common in Australia, especially for large data center projects. Hybrid debt and equity structures blends both debt and equity in creative ways to optimize cost of capital and risk allocation. Let's now walk through the 5 distinct stages of a typical data center development project. Stage 1, pre-development and site acquisition. At the start of a data center project, equity is needed to secure the land acquisition and land acquisition loans with the electric grid reservation deposits. Stage 2, project development and design. Here you will use bridge to construction debt and mezzanine finance to cover the soft project costs, such as obtaining engineering designs and permit application approvals. Stage 3, construction building. This stage will involve progressive drawdown loans, which means the money will be released stage by stage as construction and operational milestones are completed. Sustainability-linked loans can also be used here if the project is designed sustainable finance categorization. Stage 4, commissioning and stabilization. At this part of the data center development, the risk profile of the project transitions from construction build risk to tenant cash flow risk. At this point, the development project can also employ something known as a warehouse refinance. In stage 4, the data center has now been completely constructed and is starting to generate revenue through the inaugural data center tenants. And finally, stage 5, complete operation and tenancy. In the final stage of financing a data center, the project would move to more permanent capital solutions, which could be comprised of asset-backed securities or commercial mortgage-backed securities, plus continuous asset finance for hardware refreshments, renovations, and upgrades. Executing every single stage of a complete data center project typically takes a time frame of 18 to 36 months. From site selection to cement slab foundation to practical completion and full operation, generating recurring revenue. However, when it comes to actually building the data center, there are 3 key building stages. First and foremost, we have the pre-development and site selection stage, which can last 3 to 12 months to organize the principal equity, land purchase, power agreements, and obtain respective legal permits. The second stage is finalizing and confirming the data center designs and receiving final approvals for the data center build. This stage lasts up to 3 to 6 months and can be comprised of mezzanine finance, certifications from engineers, and the agreement of off-take negotiations. Then we have the final building stage, which is the actual data center construction. This stage lasts 12 to 24 months and is financed using drawdown loans, which are secured by assets and completion guarantees. For the operational stages of a data center development project, there are another 3 key stages. First of all, once the data center has reached practical completion, commissioning and testing will immediately take place. This stage can last 3 to 6 months and involves the integration of the data center's very first tenants, making full use of the data center's capabilities with the transition towards permanent finance as the data center builds up its client base. The next operational stage is stabilization and lease up. This stage is highly important as the data center will finally begin to attract tenants, meaning consistent cash flows as the IT load ramps up. This stage lasts anywhere from 6 to 12 months, and it's at this point that lenders also start offering lower interest rates as cash flows become more predictable. The final stage of a data center development is when it is finally fully operational and tenanted. At this point, the newly constructed data center facility reaches complete target occupancy. In this final stage, the data center project is completely finished and now generates stable recurring revenue, attracting long-term leases, which make it an ideal time to refinance into more long-term permanent debt through structured finance arrangements like asset-backed securities or commercial mortgage-backed securities. Every great opportunity always comes with a respective level of risk. The first broad category of data center risks are known as project risks. These include risks in construction and execution, such as for building delays, cost overruns, and supply chain issues for specialized technology, such as graphics processing units or sophisticated cooling equipment. Power and infrastructure are also another risk, as there can be electric grid connection delays, rising energy costs, and even water scarcity, which is particularly critical here in Australia. The final kind of risk behind a data center development project goes back to the market dynamics of demand and supply. Just like any other technological or business trend, the AI hype cycle could slow down, or there could be heavy tenant concentration with large hyperscalers such as Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, or Google Cloud Platform. Whether it's a change in demand or the entrance of too many competitors into the market, there is always a risk that market dynamics can change, negatively affecting your investments. Data center finance risks. Financing any project, no matter how big or small, comes with inherent finance risks. In particular, there are the usual financing and interest rate risks, such as if the central bank decides to lift interest rates, making debt capital more expensive. Then, you also have regulatory and environmental risks, such as for permitting, which is often a primary bottleneck in large-scale construction developments. There could also be changes in local zoning laws, pushback from community stakeholders, or even a new discovery of a protected animal, which can potentially halt a construction project indefinitely. Another finance risk falls under ESG compliance. As ESG environmental, social, and governance standards evolve, projects may be negatively affected by stricter carbon emissions limits or green taxonomy requirements, which can make the project ineligible for certain types of institutional funding. The final type of finance risk is data sovereignty and cybersecurity. For digital infrastructure like data centers, data sovereignty refers to laws like GDPR or localized storage requirements, which legally mandate that data must be stored and processed within a country's specific national borders. Non-compliance of these regulations can lead to massive fines or even the loss of operating licenses. Understanding these risks early is key to structuring finance that works well and complements your data center project. So, where does Forward Prosperity fit in? Well, as a Sydney-based finance brokerage company, we connect borrowers to the best lenders for commercial loans, asset finance, and tailored debt solutions. With regards to data center projects, we can help in 3 practical ways. Firstly, we can help you secure construction and development finance for the actual construction of the data center. Secondly, we can help arrange finance for data center related assets, such as for the CPU and GPU servers, cooling systems, and other critical data center equipment. And thirdly, we structure competitive finance facilities for expansion or refinancing, ensuring you have the most appropriate form of finance throughout the data center's entire life cycle. Thank you very much for your time watching this detailed presentation on how to finance a data center. If you are planning, developing, or operating a data center, and you would like to know more about different financing options, I invite you to visit our website at forwardprosperity.com to book in a free data center finance consultation. At Forward Prosperity, we are deeply committed to helping you build Australia's technology and artificial intelligence future. Thank you again for your time, and we look forward to speaking with you soon. Thank you.